Welcome to Fantastical Tales. This is a place to enjoy the glory of story. Folk tales, fairy lore, gothic horror, and the wonderfully weird. Thank you for joining me. It was a cool autumn evening, about a half an hour after sunset. The woman was sitting in a chair by the fire, and curled up on the floor at her feet was the cat. She was waiting for the return of her husband, who had been off working for the day. He was taking a little longer than usual, and she was beginning to get worried when the door opened and he shuffled inside. "Oh dear, I'm glad you're home. I was beginning to get worried," she commented. The cat continued to doze by the fire, completely ignoring the humans in the room, of course. "Well," replied her husband, "I had a very unusual occurrence as I was walking home tonight. As I walked along the dirt road, I came upon a very strange sight. Something which I can only describe as a congregation, a gathering, a rendezvous of some sort of cats." At this, the cat by the fire opened one of his eyes. They were gathered in some sort of cat meeting, it seemed. I think I may be going crazy, dear wife. They were sitting in a great circle and making the most lamentious meows I've ever heard. And as I stood there looking at them, they apparently realized that I was watching them and stopped. They all looked at me. They stared at me with their eyes, and I began to feel very uncomfortable. It's a very strange thing to have hundreds of cat eyes staring at you in silence. At this, the cat by the fire opened his other eye and raised his head just a little. They were in a big ring, and as I drew a little closer, I could see that in the center of the ring was a dead cat. At this, the cat by the fireside raised his head a little more and seemed to be listening to the story. Well, being that I felt very self-conscious and uncomfortable and frankly a little creeped out, I turned and I began to continue my way home. But a very large cat, completely black, except for a little white splash, a little white patch on his throat. I suppose you might say he was some sort of a clerical cat who was overseeing the funeral arrangements of this dead cat in the middle. I know that sounds bizarre, but at this, the cat by the fire sat up on his two front legs, still sitting, with his eyes wide open now, listening attentively to the story, it seemed. The man continued, "I was beginning to get kind of scared because this cat just continued to follow me. In fact, he caught up to me and was walking beside me. I began to go a little faster, and he would go a little faster. And I began to run, and he was running by my side, and finally he reached out. He stood up and he grabbed onto my leg, and I froze, and staring at me with these giant green eyes, he opened his mouth and spoke. He said to me, I'll never forget it, 'Tell Tim Tigerstripes that Tom Tidmouse is dead.'" At this, the cat by the fireside leapt to his feet, stood up on his hind legs, opened his mouth, and said,
If Tom Titmouse is dead, then I am king of the cats.
He then ran into the fireplace and up the chimney, never to be seen again.